Tonight's show is brought to you by the 2022 Ozarks Home and Outdoor Recreation Expo, Bendetti Optics, and you, our listeners. You must really love living here. I was like, this place is gorgeous. It would be awesome to live here, and I'll never forget her response to me. She said, I effing hate it here. What is up, all of you Wayward Souls, and welcome back to the Wayward Stories podcast. Wayward Stories is the podcast dedicated to telling our stories of wandering and wondering. Adventures in self-discovery, adventures in the great outdoors. Like, we do a lot of things over here, and I enjoy it every single week, and I am happy to be back here in the studio talking to you guys again. I hope you are all well. How's the last couple of weeks been? They've been crazy for me. Very, very busy. As we've previously talked about, I've bitten off more than I can chew, but, hey, I'm working through it. So, what are we going to talk about tonight, guys? We're going to have a little bit of housekeeping. That's a coming. But I'm going to tell you right up front. It just kind of dawned on me recently. I was like, you know what? I could just tell people up front what I'm planning to do with the episode, and maybe it would cut down on disgruntled listeners, even though I don't have that many. I'm really just basing this all off of that one dude, that one time. But it did dawn on me, like, it might help you guys to know what to expect as we go throughout the show. So, tonight, we're going to talk about cars. We're going to talk about adventure wagons. We are going to talk about my Xterra, which I recently traded off. Any of you that follow me on Instagram are aware of this. And the new Subaru that I purchased. But we're going to kind of say goodbye to the old X because it was my best friend for a lot of years. Got me through a lot of hard times and really opened up my world in so many ways. It represented a whole lot more than just a vehicle at that point in my life. But we have evolved beyond it, and the time came that it was necessary to replace it. So I've done that, and we're going to kind of talk about that tonight, but we're going to use that to go into a broader context of like just choosing the right wagon for you, y'all, the right adventure wagon, the right scooter. What is it that you want to have versus what is it that you actually maybe need to have? We're going to talk about it from the angle of practicality, possibly, and we're just going to talk about that in general, but we're also going to talk about quite a few other things tonight. It's going to be a little bit of a potpourri. So the general way we're going to do this, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking through housekeeping. All of it is on brand and on point and outdoor related, I promise you. Then we're going to talk about a little bit of a lesson that I learned and a story about a road trip in particular that helped me to learn that. And then we're going to talk about a few cool road trips because fall, y'all, it is fall. Fall is finally upon us. We hope here in Arkansas, at least. I saw one of the people I follow on Instagram recently mentioning that, this is like our third fall in Arkansas this year. So let's hope this isn't just another false fall. Let's hope this one's like a real fall. But on the calendar, it is actually fall. So it's time for some of those fall foliage road trips. And we've got a handful here in Arkansas that you should absolutely look into coming and doing. So we'll talk about that for a little bit. Then after the break, we'll probably really get into the kind of you remember the Choose Your Solution episode, the Gear to Go part 2, I think, Choose Your Solution. And all it really was me talking through gear choices and different ways of looking at things, like when you're going through trying to find what's right for you, the right equipment for you, the right gear for you or whatever. That's kind of how we're going to treat this episode tonight. And I'm going to like real talk with you guys about vehicles and specifications and the things that actually matter and the things that don't really matter. Like, we get lost in a sea of advertisers all the time. People trying to tell us this and lost in lust. Looking online, everyone on there is trying to pretend they're something they're not and buying things they can't afford just to fit in with a specific group. And it's very discouraging to a lot of my listeners. I've been hearing over and over again. So we're going to talk about like real talk about what do you really need and what works for you. So that's going to be kind of the basic outline of tonight's episode. So let's kind of get started. Let's get started with housekeeping. First of all, I challenge all of you to go and share this to groups. If you have any of my episodes that you really like, or you come across one that's like, oh, I'm from this area and he did this, and this is a cool episode about it, and you're in a group like we have here in Arkansas, we have the My Buffalo River group. I can't go in there and share my podcast because they'll kick me out. They're like, no self promotion or whatever. But if one of you guys have a local group that you're a part of that's dedicated to some awesome wonder, and I've actually been there or talked about it, go in, man. Go right here. Take that episode while you're watching it or listening to it, wherever you're at. Just copy the link, go into the group and say, hey, check this out. Like, I would really appreciate that, because that happens from time to time, and I can track it within reason and figure out, oh, I had a huge surge in views or downloads of the episode. And it means a lot, because to me, see it from my perspective, it's not so much, I'm not as interested in a huge bulk of like downloads all at once. That doesn't affect me so much. What I see in that is, a whole bunch of more people heard the episode, and maybe some of those will become, permanent listeners like so many of you have. And I appreciate all of you, every single one of you. I really, really do. But yeah, just take time. If you think about it, you come across something and you think somewhere that people would be interested in it, and copy that link, share it over there, and I would be greatly appreciative. Also, Ozarks Rec Show still coming up soon, October 21st through the 23rd, Rogers Convention Center, Rogers, Arkansas. I hope to see you guys there, man. I've got a ton of stuff from Bendetti. I've got some cool chest rigs from Solomon Dry Goods to give away. Got to be a lot of people there. There's going to be a lot going on over those 3 days, so I hope to see you guys there. Also, mentioned last week, spooky season is approaching. If any of you guys got any creepy stories of things you've run across out there in the wilderness on any of your adventures, you got about, I'd say, 2 weeks at the minimum, 3 weeks at the maximum before I have to record that episode. So if you got any stories you would love to share, remember, you're welcome to do it anonymously, or choose a handle, or I'll give you full credit if you want full credit. But you got about 3 weeks to write those up and get them in and send them my way. So mywaywardstory@gmail.com if you would like to participate, or you can send it to me in instant messenger. But I'd prefer it if you went email, because then I can print it out and read it instead of having to transcribe it to Word and then print it out so that I can read it when we get to that episode. I'm excited about the spooky season episode. The more I've thought about some of the adventures I've been in over the years, the more I've thought about some like really cool, creepy stuff. Like, it's going to be a fun episode, and hopefully you guys can get some of your stories in. If you don't, no harm, no foul, no hard feelings, but it would be a really cool episode to put together like a 2-hour freaking extravaganza and just tell like personal stories of things that we've had happen to us out there that were a little bit creepy or spooky or scary in some way, shape, or form. It's free form, y'all. You don't have to follow any specific set guidelines or whatever. Just if you got something, send it in. mywaywardstory@gmail.com. I wanted to give a shout out. I've got a new follower on the old Instagram that I followed back, and I'm really enjoying her stuff. And she is a budding photographer. She is out in, I believe it was Denver, North Carolina. She is in the Carolinas. And if you go to look for her, it's at Reeves Photo, Reevesphoto on Instagram. And what she's doing is, I took interest because she's kind of doing what I started doing 4 or 5 years ago. Just taking a step out on a limb and going in grassroots, trying to just go do something you love. And she's really into photographing bands, and she's kind of starting to go down that road. And she's a seasoned photographer like I was and am to a degree with landscape photography, but she's wanting to branch out into doing photos of people. And to do that, y'all, you have to build a portfolio. So go and follow her, give her some support. And if you are in North or South Carolina, if you're in a band, or if you've got, kids and you'd like to try some pictures, go and find her at Reeves Photo, ReevespHoto, on the old Instagram, and you can get a hold of her that way. And that way it's cool, because you might get some really dirt cheap, or possibly even free, who knows, photography just for giggles to help her build up her portfolio and practice and whatever. And who doesn't like really cheap and or free stuff? Of course, this is in effect as of like October 2022. If you listen to this episode 5 years from now, hopefully she's like making fat, big bank bucks, and she's really pulling in the scratch because she's doing what she wants to do. And so she might not be willing to do it for free 5 years from now. But as of right now, she's out there and she's just trying to build up her portfolio and take a step out on a limb and go live the life she wants to live. So you guys go follow her on Instagram. And if you're in that area, by all means, hit her up. Maybe she will come take some pictures of you. What else? Oh yeah, I took a little drive today. The day trips have been saving me. We've been talking about day trips. We've mentioned it 2 or 3 or 4 times in the last several episodes. They've been saving me here lately. I've gotten so busy. It's just insanity. It's beyond me, but I'm managing. But the only way I'm managing is I still have to get my little brain break every once in a while so my anxiety doesn't take me down a rabbit hole and I don't just lose my brain. So I've been trying to stab in these little day trips, and it's been cool because what it's done is it's given me, I got all those rack cards. We mentioned that. I got those like travel brochure type rack cards made up for the podcast. And also some small little flyer things. They're almost postcard size that we're going to be handing out at the Ozarks Rec Show. But I have those 2 things, promotional material. And so I've just taken it upon myself. I'm going to go hit the truck stops on the major interstates. Like, I'm kind of in a great place in Fort Smith for that because I'm right at the intersection of Interstate 40, which is basically ocean to ocean. It goes as far as Bakersfield, but then you can take it on another little ways and you're in Los Angeles and to the ocean. It's ocean to ocean. And 49, which is sort of disconnected, and 71 as well, but 49 is not quite all the way put together yet, but the majority of it is. And that guy runs all the way from the freaking ocean to Canada. When it's finally finished, it's going to be pretty slick, right in the center of the country. Freaking crossroads, right here, Fort Smith, Arkansas. So, by the way, I just said Arkansas. I do that sometimes. That is illegal to do in this state. Anyway, so I've been putting out these rack cards, and I've actually heard back from some people. It gives me something to go do, and get out of the house for a few hours. But I've heard back from some people, and it's been cool. I heard back from, the very first one I heard back from was one of my very first weekend trips I took, and it was just when I left at a travel stop up around Fayetteville. And it was a guy on Instagram, goes by @successfullybearded, and I assure you, he is very successfully bearded. I wish I could beard in the way that he is bearding. It is beardtastic. But I just heard from someone the other night, and this is super exciting. What did I say? Like, was it 2 episodes ago? Last episode? Anyway, it's been in the last 2 or 3 episodes. It said we've got all the continents except Antarctica, right? So I get a message from someone just a few nights ago, and they're like, yo, we're heading up from Texas all the way back to KC, and I picked up your rack card or your flyer there in Joplin. And we've been listening, and it's cool, man. We've listened to a couple episodes, and we're definitely going to put you in the rotation. By the way, I happen to know someone that is on one of the research stations down there in Antarctica, and I'm going to see if we can get that hooked up. So how cool is that? How cool is that? Man, that stuff. And plus, now they follow me, and I'm following them, and they're quite adventurous, her and her partner. And I know what I'm going to go ahead and shout them out here. And it is Rebel Girl Scout and J Beckett 33 on Instagram. So you guys maybe go give them a follow if you want to follow some cool little adventures. They got a lot of cool stuff going on. They're out there having fun. They're out there having fun with life, which is what I'm always promoting and all about. And I just want to say to both of you guys, I am glad you're on board. I'm glad you're listening. Glad you picked up the rack card. And yeah, that's super fun stuff. That makes me very, very, very happy. Beyond that, I think that just about wraps up our housekeeping for tonight. So let's get moving. I told you guys that I was going to share with you a little bit. And what if we talked about this podcast so many times? It is kind of my story. It's my rediscovery of myself and maybe even discovery in general, but it's me getting back to who I was before all the nastiness happened. You know what I mean? And really getting to become who I am. Like, it's really fun time. It's a really hard time. We're having to work through it. It's tough, but it's really fun. Like, I've got a lot of excitement inside of me about where I'm taking my future, for myself and for my daughter. Hopefully, like, it's going to be good times. It's going to be good times. But it's been, the podcast is all about that. Wayward Stories. Wayward. What does wayward mean? Lost the path. Trying to find the path. Maybe you never knew the path, but you're trying to get back on the path, right? You're trying to find your path in this life. That's kind of the colloquial way of using wayward, and which is how I am using it, intending it. And that's what this podcast is. Like, it's just couched in the outdoors because that has been the vehicle to facilitate me starting to figure all that out. So I like to share my life experiences, and so far, so good. I've gotten lots of great feedback from people that it's mattered to them a little bit. So I'm going to continue to do that. So we're going to talk about one tonight. This is really interesting. I go through, like, I'm a really in my head kind of person. Like, I think way too deeply about probably way too much stuff all the freaking time. But that's just the world I live, and I've kind of embraced it. I'm a cerebral person. That's just who I am. So let's just freaking roll with it. Let's make it work for us. And I try to make it work for me by trying to be a better human, by trying to improve myself and hopefully put myself in a position to help other people out a little bit. I'm not like trying to put myself in some haughty position of, yeah, I'm going to go and make people's worlds better. But like in the everyday ways, just by learning about people and empathizing with people and sharing stories with people. And if I can help, I can help. And I want to help. Like, this world can really suck, but I like it better when it doesn't suck. And the best way to make it not suck is to not be sucky yourself. Put a little effort into it. And that's kind of what I try to do. So with that in mind, I've been going through all this crap in my head recently, and I was at work. Just quick context backstory to make this make some sense. And this is probably why Arkansas tourism is not interested in me and why I can't be an R ambassador, as many people has put me up for it. I mean, number one, yes, I don't fit the proper demographic. I'm not pretty enough, in any way, shape, or form to be an R ambassador. And apparently, just interesting stories and a podcast and a YouTube and lots of pictures of all the awesome things in Arkansas. I don't know. It might be because I'm also real about stuff. And this may be why. But I live in this Fort Smith area, have essentially my entire life. Grew up in Eastern Oklahoma, lived here my whole life, and it's a suckhole. It's an economic suckhole. Like, if you don't, say, have an education and you're not here for upper echelon management positions at certain places, I mean, it sucks. It's a hard place to live. Dang near everyone I know hates it here. Like, it's a horrid place to be. You talk to people from NWA, they're like, oh God, I hate Fort Smith. Most of them lived here and left for the promised land of Northwest Arkansas at some point in their lives, which I would do if it wasn't for my daughter being here at Fort Smith. So, that's just life, right? But this area is a stinky dang area to be in. You're not going to get ahead in life here. And it feels like a gravity. It was kind of like Big Purple. It's like a gravity you can't get out of. Well, I was driving down Logtown Hill in Van Buren, running my route at work just like a week ago. And I was looking over the river valley. And I'm looking at the Arkansas River, and I'm looking at all the green, lush trees. And I've been gaining a certain amount of appreciation, because we are a tourist draw. We're a highly touristy area in one sense, and it's mostly historically based, but we got some amazing historical sites. We were literally, they talk about St. Louis as the gateway to the West. Fort Smith was like the last frontier gateway into the West. After we progressed beyond St. Louis, Fort Smith became the place. And there's awesome buildings in history in downtown Van Buren, which is literally right across the river from Fort Smith. Basically one big city, but that's just how it goes as things expand. So I've gained some appreciation. Fort Smith is starting to revitalize. The downtown has become a gorgeous place, and it continues to get more gorgeous as they're revamping these old buildings and these Victorian era buildings, and we got lots of like restaurants and different shops coming in. It's turning into a really cool place in a lot of ways. But I'm coming down Logtown Hill with all that in my mind, and it just kind of hit me. I was like, that's really beautiful. This is really beautiful. And I kind of for a second had an out of body experience, almost like an out of Justin experience, and was like, if I was seeing this as a tourist, because I have a lot of experience now as a tourist, right? I'm out in the world everywhere adventuring. And it kind of dawned on me, it's like, if I were coming here and had never been here, and I was driving down this hill right now, going down to the historic side, or these things that I know here that are really, really cool, this place might look like a totally different place to me. Actually, it would definitely look like a totally different place to me. And for whatever reason, my brain started to flip that into a little bit more of a, you know what? If you were just in a different station in life, this place would look different to you. You wouldn't be living in certain parts of town because you could afford to actually live where normal middle-class people live. You wouldn't actually be eating garbage, from garbage places on the worst roads in the worst neighborhoods where it's the cheapest, because you could actually go. Like, if you're going out for dinner and you were going to Bricktown every night, or not every night, but whenever you do, or somewhere fancy, like this would be a whole different world. Just a different station would make this area a whole different world to you, and you could actually live here and probably like it if your situation were different, if your quote unquote station in life were just a little different. And in that, there was a contrast. And there's a reason I'm telling you this whole long story. In that, there was a contrast to me. It reminded me of a story when I was on my way to San Francisco, way back when, 3 or 4 years ago. And I stayed the night in Williams, Arizona, literally on Christmas Eve. On my way out, I just ran up to the Grand Canyon. I came back home through intermittent snowstorms everywhere. Get to Williams, grab dinner from a place wherever, I don't even remember, but I got it in a bag. And I was back in Williams at a hotel, standing on the porch. It was freezing outside the porch. Out front, it was freezing outside. Snow was falling on Christmas Eve. I'm in the high plains, y'all. I am Williams, Arizona, the high desert. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. That night was magical. And I loved Williams. I fell in love with it. It was beautiful, beautiful place. And it's right up my alley. And I was like, this place is freaking amazing. I could live here. And it is stuck in my brain forever. I mean, it's where the Grand Canyon Scenic Railway departs and terminates at, and take tourists up to the South Rim via train right there out of Williams. Amazing place. Well, the next morning I get up and I go to get gas to head out on the next leg of my trip, right? Go in, paying for the gas and talking to the gas attendant. It's, 5:45, something like that in the morning. I was like, you must really love living here. I was like, this place is gorgeous. It would be awesome to live here. And I'll never forget her response to me. She said, I effing hate it here. And I was like, oh, really? Why do you hate it here? And she's like, there's nothing but meth. She's like, it's an economic suckhole. There's no way out of here. Everywhere but this part of town right down here that looks so nice, everywhere else is trash. Like, she hated it. She hated it. For all the same reasons that so many people hate it around Fort Smith. There's so much meth. There's so much crime in certain places. Fort Smith actually is not bad for crime, per capita. But it was the same concept. You follow me? It's the same concept. She's living in one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen and absolutely hated it. But think about who I was talking to. Nobody wants to be in a place where you have to work at the gas station at 6 a.m. and that's how you're paying bills. And I don't mean that in any kind of disparaging way to any of you out there listening that are doing it. Y'all, I have done it myself. And I'm not in much better shape than that now, as it is. I'm just saying it factually. Nobody really wants that. You know what I mean? That's not what you're after. She was, like me, stuck here in a situation that you weren't necessarily happy with. But she was in one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, with access to the freaking Grand Canyon, 40 minutes up the road. I'd be there every freaking weekend. Think about it. Think about it. This world is 2 different ways all the time. Different shades of it, different variances of it. But this world sucks. It does. But it's also freaking amazing. And that's the story of the last 5 years of my life. I told you guys before that, how somehow the worst thing that ever happened to me was also the best thing that ever happened to me. And there's still no words for me to properly convey that to you and make it make sense unless you've lived something like it. But everything in this world is all about looking at it one of 2 ways. The world sucks, but it's also awesome. It's both at the same time. The whole thing is what's your perspective on it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not about to go down that cliched old rabbit hole of you just have to change your perspective. Be thankful for what you have. That is not what I'm about to say. What I'm about to say is it is about changing your perspective, but doing so through actually changing your position. And that is necessary sometimes. Think about it. Down here in the Ouachitas in southeast Oklahoma, there are these beautiful mountains, the winding Xterra mountain range, Talamina Scenic Drive. From the top of those vistas looking down on the valley, it's gorgeous. Nothing but hills and mountains and forest, green, lush forest as far as the eye can see to the horizon, and it's gorgeous. But if you're down in the valley, right up against the Fushmaline River, which you overlook at some points, I've been down there on that river. Y'all, it's mostly swamp. There are water moccasins everywhere. It's infested with mosquitoes, and it's brown mud water. I'm talking legit sludge water. Okay, it's gross down in that valley. I mean, it's beautiful in its own way, I guess, as a river bottom, but mountaintop versus the sludge water. Okay, the only difference is you're either looking down upon it in a vast kind of like 10,000 foot view of the whole of it, or you're standing right up against it, right? It's all about the position you're in. Sometimes you have to climb the mountain to get the more beautiful view. Sometimes being down in the trenches is not the best place to be. I mean, oftentimes it's not. You have to put in effort and you have to work yourself out of that. And I am living proof of that. Like, I know people always, when you hear stuff like this, they're like, oh, it's easy for you to say. Look at you. Yeah, look at me. 5 years ago, let me get real personal for just literally, hopefully less than 20 or 30 seconds. 5 years ago, I was standing there going, holy crap, I'm suddenly being divorced. Did not want that to happen. Had $186 in the bank in like 3 weeks to pay rent. And not enough employment. I was employed, but not employed enough to make that rent. Y'all, had everything to lose, but at the same time, I had nothing to lose because I'd lost everything that mattered. Okay, well, here we are 5 years later. I'm halfway through my freaking anthropology degree, literally almost halfway through my anthropology degree, working out the details for starting postgraduate school for a master's in history to go along with that anthropology degree. Still struggling to pay bills, but I'm paying bills. I'm living in a pretty darn nice little house to live in, renting. I mean, it's nice enough. It's warm and keeps a roof over my head, and I can feed my daughter, right? And I got 3 years worth of YouTube videos. I've got this podcast is now, God, a year and a half closing in after Christmas on 2 years into production. All the things that I set out from when I had nothing, just literally 4.5-ish years ago, $186 in the bank and almost homeless, to here. And you know what it took? Seeing the top of that damn mountain over there and looking at that stupid mosquito-laden, malaria-infested water moccasin teeming swamp water in front of me, but looking up and being able to see the mountaintop and saying, you know what, I can either stay the heck here or I can try to go the heck there. And if I try to go the heck there and I die on the way, it was better than staying here. At least I'll die knowing I tried. And that is a good analogy because that's part of what I set out to do in this life is I do not want to lay on my deathbed someday and think to myself, I regret not trying every single last option available to me to make myself the life that I wanted to live. I tell you all that not to be like, oh, Justin, I don't want no pats on the back. I don't want no pats on the back. It's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that to prove to you, no matter where you're at, you can work out of it. It's just going to take effort. Climbing a mountain is never easy, but you've only got 2 options. Stay where you're at or go where you want to go. Or die trying. I guess that's a third option. We're hoping that, it's kind of like option B squared, maybe. No, that gets into like calculus or something. Anyway, I want to move on from that, but I just wanted to point it out, guys. I just wanted to make that, I wanted to get it out there. These are the kind of stories that I get the biggest responses from my listeners saying, that really, really helped me in this way, or it helped me in that way, or it gave me perspective I really kind of needed to hear. It's going to, it's helped to jostle me out of my rut that I'm stuck in. I want to do this and I'm going to go do this, like whatever it is. And it's all about the evolution of self, y'all. And that's what this podcast is. Let's get out there in the world, explore the things we freaking love, the things we want to see, whatever draws our soul. Let's go to it. Let's go freaking find it. Let's go get it. And then we'll see what it does for us from there. We'll see where it takes us. But you've got to freaking assess it, that this is a situation, and then do something about it. And that's what this is about. I don't think that, just change your perspective. Be thankful for what you have. That's always been dismissive. Just kind of like we mentioned last week about telling someone, oh, be thankful you're alive after your whole house burnt down. It is dismissive. No, a real approach to that is, I do need to change my perspective, but the only way to do that is by changing my position relative to this. You can either live in a freaking gorgeous place or a place you hate. And it all depends on if you're the person working at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday on Christmas Day, or you're the person that's just passing through. Or like, because I could see me making a life in Williams, Arizona, y'all. I could totally just go be like an interpretive, like conductor on the scenic railway to the Grand Canyon or work the Grand Canyon. I'd be happy with any of that and living in one of the most beautiful places ever. But the difference is between working at that stupid gas station that poor woman was having to work at or doing what I'd like to do is exactly what I'm doing right now, which is going to school to lay the groundwork to get a piece of paper that says, hey, national parks, hey, state parks, hey, University of Higher Education. I got the chops. Hire me to do something I care about doing. That's the whole point. It ain't easy. It's hard freaking work. Y'all, I haven't seen the light of day in like 6 months, but we're getting there, and you can too. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, if you don't like it, it may be a long trek in front of you. It absolutely might, but you can do it. And it's all about taking the steps, taking the initiative, and saying, I just don't want to be here anymore. So anyway, that's this week's Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy. But I think it's like something y'all need to hear. I think it's something everyone needs to hear. That's why we share these stories, y'all. We all need to share our experiences because it's these perspectives that broaden all of our views. Like it's perspectives like this one that I've heard in so many other places in the podcast I listen to and the shows that I watch that have helped me to mold myself and evolve myself. Anyway, around it, let's get on to the break. Actually, that took longer than I thought. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Hopefully I haven't lost you. We are going to talk about cars and travel and all that good stuff tonight. I promise you that. So we're going to cut from here. We're going to take our quick break for some words from our sponsors. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of autumn road trips here in Arkansas. And we're going to talk about, well, the passing of the Xterra and moving on with my life, on to my new love, Lady Clementine, the Subaru, and just being practical about choosing vehicles that you want that will do what you need to do for getting out in the backcountry. So anyway, we'll catch you guys after the break. What is up, all of you Wayward Souls? I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor, Vendetti Optics, a brand based right here in the good old US of A, Portland, Oregon, to be exact. And I bought my first pair of Vendetti sunglasses about a year and a half ago and fell in love with them, so much so that I got online and ordered a couple of more pair. And when I did, there was a small shipping snafu, an order fulfillment snafu, and I got on the phone, gave them a call, and guess what? I get a call back from who? One of the big men themselves, right there in Portland, from the top of the chain. Have a great conversation, and we end up starting this great relationship we have. They more than made right the little snafu that occurred, and I am now a huge proponent of them because I can tell you from personal experience they are good people, and they're trying to compete with the big boys out there coming in at a price point of about $40 but using the exact same frame material, TR90, and the same polarization process as the big guys. As it turns out, something I think we are already probably knew in our hearts, when you buy big name sunglasses, you're buying a big name, not necessarily any more quality than you can get somewhere else, like at Vendetti Optics. They have 29 different styles. They have multiple polarization options for whatever climate you happen to live in, and they back it up with like this lifetime guarantee that if your dog eats your sunglasses, it doesn't matter how you break them, send it back in with a check to cover shipping and handling, and you're golden. You got a new pair on the way. These guys are truly trying to do it right, and they have this philosophy that a really good pair of sunglasses should not cost you so much that you are afraid to wear them. And I think all of us outdoorsmen can relate to that. So if you guys, like me, are very practical and like to get more bang for your buck and wear some great looking sunglasses, check out BendettiOptics.com. That's BendeTi optics.com, or you can go over to Instagram /BendettiOptics. And that I highly suggest, whether you buy a pair or not, just to check out the cutest pupper you will ever see modeling sunglasses. Once again, that's BendettiOptics.com, and make sure and let them know Wayward Stories sent you. What's up, guys? I want to tell you about tonight's sponsor, the Ozarks Home and Outdoor Recreation Expo. It's being held at Rogers Convention Center in Rogers, Arkansas, October 21st through the 23rd of this year. This show is for all of us outdoor enthusiasts, and it's going to feature exhibitors and vendors that specialize in the products and destinations that tailor to all of our outdoor predilections. So if you guys are in the market for your next big kid toy or a new piece of gear, or you just want to find some ideas for your next adventure, or maybe you want to rub elbows with all of your fellow outdoors people, we're all going to be there. I'm going to be there all weekend, all 3 days, Friday through Sunday, daylight to dark. At my booth, we're going to be giving away t-shirts, sunglasses, stickers from Bendetti Optics. We're going to be giving away some handmade tactical gear for hiking and search and rescue applications from another great friend of the show, Solomon Dry Goods. It's going to be a whole event, y'all. This is a statewide thing. It's a big deal, and y'all need to get out and check it out. If you happen to be an exhibitor or a vendor, if you want to secure for yourself a space at the expo to let people know you're around, send me an email at mywaywardstory@gmail.com. Once again, we're talking about the Ozarks Home and Outdoor Recreation Expo, Rogers Convention Center, Rogers, Arkansas, October 21st through the 23rd of this year. I hope to see all of you there. And welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking around through the ad break. It means a lot to us. As I took the break, I went and grabbed something to drink real quick and just kind of, cleared my head and got ready to come back for part 2. And I was thinking about Justin, cringe. Did you share too much? But you know what? When it comes down to it, I did not. I may not ever be popular. This show may never ever take off because I'm real. There's one thing no one can accuse me of is not being real about stuff. And as far as I understand it, given whatever intel and information I have, handy, and like I've told you guys before, I'm always willing to change my relative position. If you show me evidence that I need to change my relative position, I'm always wanting to grow. But you can't accuse me of not being real. Because, to me, that's what makes this what it is, for me at least, and hopefully for a lot of you, is you get someone telling you the freaking truth about stuff and sharing experiences that you can relate to, because it's that relation that lets you know sometimes, for as many people have told me, I wasn't crazy. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been through that too, and I felt like I was all alone in it, and there's something about that validation that can change the whole game. It takes the blame off of yourself and you out of your own head and gives you some confidence to go and move forward. That's why we're here right now tonight, is because it was things like that I took confidence out of and validation out of. Hey, I'm not the only one that had that experience. It wasn't necessarily my fault. Sometimes crap just happens. So anyway, we're going to get on to tonight's show, the rest of it. So we're going to talk about, first of all, it is autumn now. We do have leaf changing. We have fall foliage happening in the state of Arkansas, y'all, and it is gorgeous. So I'm going to tell you guys about a couple of trips that you can take this fall if you're here close to our state, or you may want to plan for the future. The first one I'm going to tell you about is Talamina Scenic Drive, okay? It crosses the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. It runs from Tallahena, Oklahoma. Well, it's a point north of Tallahena on Highway 259, and crosses and follows the mountaintop all the way across the Winding Stair Mountains, over across Rich Mountain, and down into Mena, Arkansas, thus Tallahena, Tamina. And both states have a different designation. I think in Oklahoma, it's like Scenic Highway 1 maybe, or 88. Maybe it's 88 in Arkansas. But anyway, you're looking for it. You Google Talamina Drive, you're going to find it. Y'all get on the old Instagram, check it out. I saw someone just like 2 or 3 mornings ago posted a picture from the top of the mountain. Holy crap. The colors are on fire on top of that mountain right now. As of October 2nd, 2022. Those colors are, they look like they're at peak, which seems a little early, but you have to keep in mind it's 2,000 feet higher than here, and the temperatures are much cooler and have already been becoming much cooler at night. Y'all, this drive, we're going to talk a few minutes about this drive because it's special, okay? People come from all over the entire United States to drive this road in the fall, and they even come from all over the world to much lesser degree, but they absolutely do. The colors are insane. If you get online and start looking for pictures, fall foliage on Talamina Drive, it'll drop your jaw. Y'all, it is reminiscent of the Northeast. I've always wanted to go to the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine in the fall. This is what it looks like. Talamina Drive, top of Rich Mountain, top of the Winding Stair Mountains. Absolutely fantastically gorgeous. Beautiful, fun drive too. Fun drive, 2-lane state highways. Reasonable shoulder in most places, but multiple turnouts to look down upon the Poto River Valley to the north or south upon, actually, some of that would be Poto River Valley too, in certain places. But anyway, a valley to the north, a valley to the south, and more mountains to your south, beyond the valley. Y'all, panoramas abound. The turnouts, the lookouts, they have great little histories that you can read and see, and it'll tell you about some of the stuff in the area. It'll tell you, one of the things I'll never forget, I always remember, is it talks about how the ground you're standing on now was once underneath the Gulf of Mexico. And just how the continents drift and shift and plow into each other. Like the land on top of Rich Mountain was once, at one time, a part of a shallow sea down in Texas somewhere. Fascinating stuff, but also just absolutely gorgeous. You have Queen Wilhelmina Lodge, Queen Wilhelmina State Park, part of the way across. It's an awesome old lodge built way back in the day. I believe this is a second iteration of it because it burned down at some point, like all old lodges do that were in the middle of nowhere. But it's a gorgeous place with gorgeous amenities, a lot of cool little stuff you can check out, a great place to stay, to go up and down Talamina Drive. And there's also some great history. There's Pioneer Cemetery up there, which we're going to talk about here in a couple of weeks during spooky season, because I have a personal story about Pioneer Cemetery. And it's a really cool cemetery. Historically speaking, what went on there is a group of settlers way the heck back in the day during the Civil War basically took off to try to get away from Civil War hostilities. And they just walked and then they climbed and they rode. I'm sure they rode horses and donkeys and everything else in the world, and found themselves on top of Rich Mountain and discovered something that botanist Thomas Nuttall figured out like in the I want to say it was 30s. Don't check me on that, but it was sometime in that time frame. Or maybe it was earlier than that. But the top of Rich Mountain was really rich. That's why it's called Rich Mountain. The soil on top of the mountain is perfectly fertile for farming. You just have to clear trees and go to farming. And that's why it's called Rich Mountain. So they found a place to settle near a spring, and they lived out the Civil War there. And many of them stayed on there. But it's super cool. There's still a few little rock markers, and there's a plaque there and a thing that kind of tells you a short little story, which is why we're going to talk about it during spooky season. There is a story of the young girl that her mother had a fever and was desperately in need of water in the middle of winter. And the young girl, I believe she was like a preteen or right at the tween age years, went out to go to the spring in the middle of the night to get water and got cornered by wolves, and she climbed a tree and froze to death in the tree. And her story is historical, and it is emblazoned there and to be retold forever. But there's also, of course, a ghost story associated with that. But the history is there. The history alone is super cool. Mena is a cool little town. Again, growing up in Heavener, Oklahoma, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Mena, I'm well aware of it. And to me, in my mind, that's just Mena. But if you're coming in as a tourist, it's a really cool place. The old Kansas City Southern Railroad Depot is there, and now their historical museum, but it's also right on the main line of the Kansas City Southern, which is still a functional railroad. And every once in a while, pretty often actually, you get to see a train go blowing by. It's nice. It's fun. It's super cool. They got a cool little downtown. They got some cool places to stay. And the Ouachitas in general are an awesome place to be. And if you're in Mena, you're kind of centrally located to a whole lot of freaking awesome stuff down there in the Ouachitas. So this should be on your bucket list by all means. A drive on Talamina Drive in the autumn should absolutely be somewhere in your future. You need to go check it out, write it down somewhere, look at some pictures, because if you look at the pictures, you're going to be like, God, I got to go right now, which is kind of how I'm feeling. Because the colors I saw just 3 mornings ago, I'm telling you, they look like they're prime, which means it won't be long before they're not prime. And then it's just brown. However, for any of you, any time of year, if you wish to see Talamina Drive, there are other aspects to it, such as it is very dark sky on top of that mountain. And when you drive down it, you have all those pullouts that you can go pull off of, and you can stare at the stars. You can do astrophotography. Y'all, we used to go up there, like we used to take girlfriends up there. You know what I mean? Not to do anything sundry, none of that. But, just to stare at the stars and be all romantic and whatever. But I remember sitting up there one night, laying in the bed of my pickup truck, just staring up at the stars, and you can see satellites crossing the sky. And there is a difference between a satellite and a space station. The space station is much more obvious. It's much brighter, and you'll see it over and over and over again every 8 or 9 minutes. Satellites move on different trajectories at a little bit different speeds, and they are so faint that you can almost only see them sometimes out of your peripheral vision. Have you ever had that? You're looking across like a long, wide open lake at night, looking straight out there. It's just pitch black. But as soon as you turn your head just a little to the left or a little to the right, you're like, there's a street light out there somewhere on the other side of that lake. You can see it in your peripheral. But when you engage it, eye contact straight at it, it disappears. I don't know what that is, but it's a thing. Some of those satellites are that faint, but you're literally sitting there looking at a satellite orbiting the Earth. That's how dark it is up there. Also, cold. Okay, the best time for star viewing up there, or stargazing, or even astro, which of course you don't have the Milky Way working for you in the winter so much. But up on top of that mountain, where the air is crisp and clear and all the humidity is hanging down in the valley and all the haze is below you, you are above so much of the light pollution and the air pollution that still even permeates us down here in the country. You can see so much, and it is so cool. And also just spending the night out there, like waiting for sunset and getting sunset pictures. Oh my gosh, y'all, photography off the chain. It's off the chain. Is that something the kids even still say? It used to be. I don't know. But moving on from there, another fall foliage trip that you can take would be the Pig Trail, which is Highway 23 here in this great state of Arkansas. Once again, 23 runs north and south through our beautiful Ozark Mountains. It will take you up through the Ozarks and right along the Mulberry River. It'll take you right by the Turner Bend store. It'll put you within 15 minutes of Birds right there on the Mulberry River. You can take it all the way up. There are historical towns along the way. It is a beautiful drive. There are restaurants in all of those little small towns, the same kinds of things that I talked about recently. You find those little diners that have that old cast iron grill from 1955 or what the heck ever. It's very colorful. The foliage can be very colorful, but also just the people, the places. It is quite an interesting drive. They call it the Pig Trail because everyone loves to ride their motorcycles on it. It's windy, it's narrow, it is a fun drive to take, but it also takes you right through the heart of so much of our best country here in Arkansas, through the Ozarks. That is also a super, super cool fall foliage drive. Something that you guys should consider looking into doing. And I'm sure any of you out there that ride motorcycles probably already know this. It is kind of famous nationally as a place to come ride that big bike of yours. So anyway, y'all, we have got a lot of fall foliage starting to happen right now. The Ouachitas on top of Talamina Drive, it is like in full effect right now. In Northwest Arkansas, in the Ozarks, it's starting to take off. I drove up that way like a week ago and I saw a few yellows. I was like, ooh, it's just about to happen. I don't have any reports and I haven't seen any pictures since then, but I bet it's getting ready to go into full swing over the next couple of weeks. So you guys, look into it. All my listeners up there in Missouri, some of my homies up there around St. Louis, you guys, you know who you are, my Roton boys, all of y'all. You might think about making a drive down. Come down one weekend and just chill out in you can spend a whole weekend in the Ozarks and have constantly stuff to do. There's all kinds of awesome stuff to do here. And on that note, you guys up there in Missouri, holler at me and let me know how the fall foliage is happening up there, because the St. Francis Mountains, and the Ozarks, the southern Missouri Ozarks, I bet there's some hecka drives up there. Any of you guys know of any awesome fall foliage drives up there? Let me know. Like, after this episode drops and you hear this, let me know so I can put it into the next episode. Anyway, but road trips abound, y'all. It's the right time of year for it, man. The heat's coming down, like the nights are getting nice. It is a good time of year to get off your duff, get out of the house, and go explore some cool things. So, with that clever little segue, how does one go to explore things? Well, typically you're going to do it in your adventure wagon. So, on to the adventure wagon part of tonight's episode. What do you guys do you tripping in? Me, obviously, we've been talking about it. I did it in my Xterra forever, a 2013 Nissan Xterra, and now I have a 2019 Subaru Crosstrek, sunshine orange, affectionately named Lady Clementine. And y'all, it's been enough time now. We're close to a month, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, since I traded off the old X, and I've had time to mourn the loss and start to move on, and also time to appreciate Clementine. Like, I've been taking her on short weekend road trips, 2 to 3 hours. Be out today. I think I drove 2 hours one way, 2 hours back, dropped some more rack cards, checked out some cool small towns down Oklahoma Highway 9. And anyone you in Oklahoma that knows what's on Highway 9 will be like, what freaking cool small towns. But again, I'm coming from a different perspective. I love history. A couple of those downtowns down there had some amazing old school banks on them. It's not the kind of place you'd plan a whole weekend trip to, but the kind of thing that if you're out there anywhere in these great United States for it, y'all, there are tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of tiny little towns that are nothing more than a sneeze, like a booger on a map. But 100 years ago, we're a bustling rail junction or something and have all these just grand old Victorian era buildings, all kinds of cool stuff. And it is all over the country. They're kind of things that when you see them, this is why I budget extra time into all my road trips, is so I can stop. I can spend an hour here and just check it out for a little bit, little bitty specs, little bitty afterthoughts on a map, but have something really cool there that'll expand your historical knowledge or just, culture you. Just get you a little bit more cultured. I told everyone way back in the day, I came back from California and they're like, so how was it? And I was like, well, I went as an uncultured swine and I have returned as a cultured swine, like it steps to this, you got to work your way up. But made my little trip today, and I'm getting used to Clementine, and I'll tell you what I'm really getting used to is that gas mileage. And that speaks directly to the point of tonight's podcast, which we kind of left that a long time ago. Kind of jumped the shark on that. We'll figure out how to name this podcast later. But it's all about what works for you, okay? To me, driving my little Clementine Subaru, I am a laughingstock to all the cool people on Instagram, right? Which I'm learning I don't really give a crap. Well, I already knew I didn't give a crap, but I'm starting to learn that Instagram is essentially modern day yuppies. Y'all, I didn't know this. Okay, I just learned this recently. Yuppies, it stood for Young Urban Professionals, okay? It was yup. And they start calling them yuppies. And literally their characterizing features are obsession with wealth, obsession with personal appearance. That is what a yuppie is. And y'all, that's the disgust factor I've been having with Instagram for, God, how long now? Months. I've been trying to keep it out of this podcast because I don't like to go down the negative tangent so much, but I've just been beating my head on the wall and I've been having to unfollow people because it's like, you've hijacked nature that I love so desperately to try to fit in with a club, and it's all just become this huge fad, and I didn't realize what it is. It's the modern 2000, it's the 2020s version of a yuppie. It's all about appearance. It's all about appearance, which plays tonight in this episode about cars and choosing the right vehicle for you. I know some of you guys are going to, I know at least a couple of people that are lost. It's lost on them. They're like, I don't get what you're talking about. You keep talking about being discouraged by people. Some of you won't get it because you just see the world through a different lens. But so many more of you do get where I'm coming from when I'm like, don't be discouraged, because I get the emails from you. I get the messages on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever, telling me yeah, I needed to hear that. I needed some perspective outside of it because it messes with people's heads. Some people just want to fly under the radar, go out there and do their thing. But when they're looking and their whole purview of the world is this world of just literally vanity, just empty vanities. Like if I go out there and go to hike, I'm going to be parking my little beat up old Altima in some trailhead with all these giant cars and people walking around looking perfect and beautiful. And y'all, it is kind of like that in some places. In the very popular places, I ain't even joking you. That's exactly what it's like. But that's why I'm telling you these stories is like, it ain't like that everywhere. And that's not what it's all about. But Instagram's gotten disgusting. It is literally the home to the modern age yuppie. And I always heard the term yuppie, but I never really was that pop culture. Like I was too young in the days that was a big deal to really understand what it was. But as soon as I read the definition recently, I was like, yo, that's exactly what's happening. But anyway, I tell you guys, don't be concerned about those yuppies. Don't be concerned about them because they're busy taking their selfies and doing their thing. If you're out there for the real reasons, we're going to help you find the right places to go. That's what we do at Wayward Stories. We've been doing it for this is 54 episodes now. Get out there and do it anyway, in whatever the heck it is you're driving. But let's talk about how to choose. If you have the ability to buy another vehicle, what are you looking to get into? What do you want to drive? One thing is you have to start by getting real with yourself. Why do you want what you want? Like I lusted heavily over a 4Runner for a long, long, long time. But when it came time to buy one, number one, I couldn't afford it. But number two, I got real about why I wanted it. See, I've always wanted to fit in, but not fit in. There's nuances to this I'm learning. Because there's people that literally are just vain and want to fit in. And I'd question myself for a long time. Is that you? Are you vain to be in that way? But it wasn't that. It was I want to fit in by doing the things and looking the way that the kind of the general populace does and whatever little, ecosystem it is that I want to exist in, like here in the outdoor sphere, because I want to blend in and fly under the radar. I don't like standing out. And this is just from traumatic childhood. I really, really hate being looked down on. And it took me years to get past a lot of that. But that's just one of those trauma things. You have it in your head. I just want people to not notice me. I just want to fly under the radar. And the best way to fly under the radar is to fit in with what's going on around you, especially in things like this that don't matter. Just like a general appearance, what just the clothes you're wearing. I just want to look like everybody else is looking for the most part, just so nobody's even batting an eye at me. I don't want to be all standing out in any way, shape, or form. And that's true of so many people, as I'm so finding out and so thankful for all of you that are writing in and telling me your stories like this. So there's that aspect of that, but you got to be real. Did I want that because I want to fit in with everyone? Yeah, partially. And that's part of it. The other thing is it's functional. It's a hell of an off-road vehicle if you get the TRD, and it's pretty darn cool, Even in its own right, it'll do a lot. It's still on the same platform, but it doesn't have that overbuilt suspension. There's a reason a TRD off-road is a TRD off-road. Just the same way that a Nissan Xterra was different than a Nissan Xterra Pro 4X or any Nissan model of anything, the Frontiers or anything. There's a four-wheel drive version of it, and then there's the Pro 4X version. The four-wheel drive has four-wheel drive. The Pro 4X has four-wheel drive and more ground clearance, and beefed up suspension, and skid plates, and all the crap you need under a car, which is the only really important thing to not jacking your vehicle to pieces, trying to take it up and down mud holes and dirt roads and all the kinds of places you want to go adventure. There's a reason there are off-road variants. The off-road variant is a more precisely built for the application of four-wheel drive. Okay, but you can still buy a four-wheel drive or the other, right? Just like my little Subi Crosstrac's four-wheel drive, and it's got 8.7 inches of ground clearance. It will serve my purposes for the most part for another 2 or 3 years until I can trade it up for a Forester Wilderness Edition, which is much, much, much more like my Xterra was. See, here's the reason. Why did I get rid of the Xterra? Number one, 13 miles a gallon in town. Not cutting it. At best, 18 miles a gallon at interstate speeds. It did love driving interstate speeds, but that's not what it was for. It's not a daily driver. The Pro 4Xs, with today's gas prices and me being a poor man, not for me. I loved it. I was in love with it. It was the best four-wheel drive I've ever owned, y'all. That thing was built like a tank. I told you guys stories. Go back and listen to the Exploring Central Colorado episode. When I got up there, going around the route of the Silver Kings. Y'all, there was one time I thought, if I mess up here, I'm dead. I'm going off the side of this mountain. I didn't even want to get into that big of a situation. And then crawling over giant, like mini boulders, going up around the peaks of Mount Sherman and whatnot, looking for all of the old gold and silver mines that had been abandoned, just to go check them out and take pictures and just explore. That thing, I damn near rock crawled it. And it took it like a champ and came back off of that mountain after having my teeth thoroughly jarred out of my head, bouncing down that road for an hour trying to get out of there, and hit the highway and hit the interstate and was doing 80 and humming smooth as a baby's bottom all the way down the interstate. Like, it was a great vehicle, but it got 13 miles to the gallon as a daily driver, and I drove it all the time. It no longer fit my needs. If you can get your hands, I will say this, if you can get your hands on a Pro 4X Xterra, I mean, mine was a 13. They quit making them in 15 for like EPA standard reasons. But if you can get one that's got, say, less than 100,000, they're getting old now. That's going to be hard to find. But you find one that's got under 100,000 miles, you're going to get some years out of it. And if you got the money to blow on the extra gas, that 6-cylinder actually has a lot of pep, y'all. It'll move you down the road. It will absolutely scooter. It's a great vehicle. They are great vehicles. Mine was a 13. Again, they quit making them in 15. Do your research. Always check for recalls and find out what problems were in what vehicles. Nissan had a problem with what we called the strawberry milkshake of death, which was a transmission line in the oil cooler kind of going wonky, and the oil and the transmission fluid getting mixed together, and it's a bad deal. It was a real bad deal. A lot of Nissans died tragically and had to be, buried at sea over that. But the 2013 was outside of those year ranges before Nissan fixed it and took care of it for all the future generations. But do your own research. But my 13 was amazing, was still kicking at 178 or 180,000 miles when I traded it in, and I only traded it in because the mileage was up there, but my payments were still up there because my credit was crap when I bought it coming out of my divorce when I had no other choices. I mean, it's honestly lucky I got financed at a dealership, but it's also like a gift from the gods that they gave me that Nissan is the one thing I could actually purchase, because it literally fueled and took me through the last 5 years, through this podcast, through the YouTube channel. Literally was a partner in this ginormous crime that I'm committing here, trying to pretend to be a podcaster. It was an amazing vehicle. If you can find one under $100,000 miles wise, yeah, they don't cost $100,000, I assure you. Man, you might want to talk about jumping on it. You might want to think about it because it's great. But for me, I went into the Subaru. Why did I go Subaru? Okay, we talked about that recently. But for me, this is back to the kind of the point of the episode. Choose your adventure wagon. It's practical. It's only 3/4 of an inch ground clearance shy of what the Xterra could do. It gets 33 to 35 miles a gallon on the interstates, what I'm figuring out. It's claimed at 33, but I'm getting it at 35 when I have long stretches. In town, minimum is 25 to 28, somewhere in there. It's supposed to be an average together of 29. Yeah, it's working out just about like that. I went 2 weeks without buying gas. Did you hear recently? What? Yeah, I mean, it was heavenly. And when I fill it up, it's only a 16.5 gallon tank. I'm only spending $45 or $50 to drive for 2 or 3 weeks on it. But it's also 4-wheel drive with 8.7 inches of ground clearance. Get those decent, solid, all-terrain tires on it. It's going to take you anywhere you need to go, short of rock crawling, at 33 miles to the gallon. That's why I have a Nissan or a Subaru now. It fits the evolution of my life. When I had the Nissan, I was doing a whole lot more, much wilder stuff, getting way back in the middle of nowhere to do the overnight hikes, to do the overnight float, to climb up to the top of mountain peaks. And just the reality is I don't do that all the time, and I don't get to do that all the time anymore at this point in my life. The preponderance of what I do is drive to work and back, right? Again, we're talking about practical. If you're not rich enough to have two vehicles and have one toy, like a 4Runner that's all built out, sitting in the garage just for weekends, it's not a great idea to drive those during the week, guys. You get these guys that are driving, I see them here all the time because we are in the South. It is redneck country. I grew up as a teenager being one of those very same rednecks. You get guys with these 33, 35-inch, mud tires on there, and they're cruising down, and you hear them coming from a mile away. You hear that hum. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know what that hum is? That's literally hundreds of dollars of rubber chewing off of those tires. You're going to change your tires once every 18 months to 2 years at $2,000 a freaking change, $1,500 to $2,000 just for tires. Also, they eat up your gas mileage, which is also already only like 12 miles to the gallon. These people are getting 8 to 10 to 12 miles a gallon and tearing $1,500 worth of rubber off their tires just to drive it around as a daily. That's a toy, not a daily driver. And it will cost you, and it affects you in the long run significantly, financially. Like, I'm going to be an old man, so I needed a practical car. This is my practical solution. And for many of you, take this into consideration. It's a practical solution. They're also cheaper. Like the Subaru, I told you I want a 4Runner. I still kind of want a 4Runner, except now I'm like, no. I want that Forester because it's a bigger car, but I want it in the Wilderness Edition because then it's dang near what my Xterra was. Same ground clearance, same overbuilt under suspension, aftermarket suspension. I don't know whose suspension. It was like Bilstein's for the X, but I don't know what they're doing with Subaru yet. But anyway, around it, it's built for that adventure, but it's also built for gas mileage. It's got more size. You can do so much, guys. You can do so much more when you can drive 3 times as far, 2 to 3 times as far over what you're ever going to get out of that friggin' 4Runner or my Xterra or, the new Broncos. Those Broncos are sexy. Those Bronco Sports and the red, man, they're sexy. Those Broncos are sexy. The 4Runners are sexy. I mean, I'd love to have a Tacoma TRD. Just the pickup truck with a snug top. Oh, that's sexy too. And they're super capable. All of those are capable. They're great off-road vehicles. Don't take me wrong. However, they are overpriced because they are popular. They are part of the fad. And granted, they've always been. They're well-built vehicles. Toyota makes a great vehicle with a great resale value. I'm not disparaging the product. I'm disparaging the fact that you have to pay a premium for it so you can fit in with the people that you want to admire and respect you. That's the difference in what I was saying earlier. I want to fit in to fly under the radar. I don't want to fit in to be admired and respected and lauded. That's kind of the difference. What are you doing it for? For me, it's to just try to hide. But anyway, around it, this little Subaru, as well as a Forester, as well as an Outback in the Wilderness Editions that are far more capable than even my little Subaru. Off-road, still coming in at that 25 or 28 to 33 MPG. And you can buy them for 30 to 40 Gs as opposed to a new 4Runner that's going from 60 to 80 Gs, depending on what configuration you buy it in. The Subaru is practical. And this was my decision process. And this is the thing for you to consider, y'all. You don't have to have the 4Runner. You don't have to have the $2,000 Overland rig on top of the ride. We've talked about that before. Overland rigs just kill me. Yes, they look awesome. And I love them. They are cool as hell. I will not ever say that they don't look awesome and would be bad A to stay in overnight. But they are so ridiculously expensive for something that is totally unnecessary and a bigger pain in the butt than it's worth. When you can literally hang out your hammock, where you can literally put a tent on the ground, where you can literally do car camping, which is what overlanding is. Let's be real about the definition of overlanding. The original definition of overlanding, y'all, was vehicles that were weekend toys. Okay? The kind that have the kind of aftermarket stuff and tires and things that you can't really drive around on pavement. They might not even be street legal in some instances. You pull them on a trailer, and then you go out there and rock crawl your way across damn mountainscapes, and then you got your tent in your vehicle, and you're overlanding. A lot of them have the snorkel so they can drive through rivers, which means the engine compartment sealed off. All of that stuff. Most of the overland rigs you see right now, which populate the majority of Instagram, and if you have one and I'm offending you, I'm sorry, because some of you guys, I never want to cast that broad of a blanket statement. Some of you guys really do the overlanding in them. But you know, you can tell the difference for the rest of us. The guys that have a big old bad A friggin' TRD off-road with an overland rig and a snorkel and all that, that actually use it to really go back in there, it has scratches on it and it looks like it gets driven. 99% of the ones you see on the old Instagram or you see out there in person sitting on the side of the Buffalo River off the side of a paved highway, they're spotless. They do not have a scratch on them. That's when it's about appearance. You can't be deterred by that, guys. Overland rigs are unnecessary, and I will die on that hill. They're super cool, but you guys that want to get out there and go camping, you don't need one to do it. Overland is car camping. Bottom line. By the definition of what people use it for today. Like again, the original definition, you really could and were going places that you couldn't go in any other vehicle, but that's not what they're doing with them today. You don't need an overland rig to camp most of the places. I would say the vast majority of most of the places that'll get you way back in there. Like my little Xterra is nowhere near overland the way that everyone else has it. But man, I can get back into the Ouachitas, into the most remote of places. Like, and I say Ouachitas because the Ozarks, there aren't that many remote places anymore. It's all very popular. The Ouachitas is where it gets really, really rugged, really down in the stuff. And that Xterra, and again, it was a great off-road vehicle for a crossover platform that could do both, a daily and an off-road. I could go anywhere, almost anywhere except through a river. And I could have added a snorkel and sealed up an engine compartment. Sure as hell I could have, but I didn't want to. It's expensive and silly. Like, it's unnecessary because I don't need to ford rivers. That's for fun. And that's what it's for. People do that. It's for fun. It's for giggles. You don't have to do it that way, guys. The right vehicle for you and how to choose it all comes back to, do you need it to be cheap enough on gas to take you places without completely bankrupting you? Do you need it? Do you have a family? Do you have 4 kids you're trying to take out? That plays. You're going to need a bigger vehicle. Are you single? Are you like me? Single with my child, but she's not doing these adventures with me yet. And even when she does, say it's you and your wife or you and your partner, you and your husband, whatever. You guys only need like a vehicle, like my little Crosstrek would do it. You roll down those back seats, you can fit all of your gear back there, and you get in the front seats, you're fine. You got plenty of room that way. But if you got 4 kids, that Crosstrek's not going to cut it. Okay, the Forester might. Or you might have to go with like a TRD. You may have to go with a 4Runner TRD or something of the like. You may have to go with a different SUV. I will say this. If you're really wanting a good 4-wheel drive, or one that's not going to fall to pieces with you using it on the back roads, even just the dirt roads, stick with the names that you understand to have to do with off-road. Literally, Nissan, Toyota, again, Subaru. Stick with those names. Stick with the names that you know that are associated with it, because you can go get you a Chevy. You can go get you a GMC. You can go get you a Ford Bronco, a Jeep. There are certain ones. Now, to be fair, the Fords, the new Broncos, the jury's out. We don't know how they're going to be. We haven't had time for recalls. We haven't had time for a lot of information. They may be amazing, but do not just assume they're going to be awesome, because we don't know that yet. They're brand freaking new, but they're awesome looking. But, those you don't know. A Ford, a Chevy, a GMC that's more just like a little crossover family sedan SUV style of thing, you're going to beat it to pieces if you go out there. You're going to have to drive super slow and just be very careful and pick your roads. Try, if you are looking to purchase, try to stick to names that you know can do 4-wheel drive and do it well without falling into a heap of metal at the end of the dirt road. On top of that, though, you have to consider, can I even afford to do that? If you cannot, the best adventure wagon you have is the one that you already have, even if it's a Nissan Altima. Y'all, I've seen some vehicles in the last few weeks. I've been noticing these and it cracks me up. I saw an old Ford Escort, like station wagon, were they even called Escort wagons or whatever? But it was one of like the 90s to 2000s Ford station wagon models. Car, station wagon. It had mud tires on it and a snorkel. Somebody had turned it into something of like an overland type of rig out of that old. Y'all, you can do it in any vehicle. And you don't even have to be four-wheel drive. There is a multitude of places, this entire country and world over, where you don't even have to have a four-wheel drive to get to all these awesome, awesome places, to amazing state parks with incredible camping facilities. Like I said, if you're camping out of your car, you are technically overlanding by the term that, or the definition as it's being used today by the people that are buying and employing the majority of the overland rigs on their vehicles. They're not even going out there to places that you can't get to. True overlanding is places you can't get to in a two-wheel drive. You follow? That's kind of where we're at with that. You don't need that. You don't have to have that. You don't need that. You get out there and whatever you have, because the whole point is live your life now. Don't wait for when things get better, because they may not. Not trying to be pessimistic, trying to be realistic. You can build a whole lifetime doing it when it's not the easiest. And when it does come time, you're like, look at everything I've already done. And it's a huge platform, a huge basis, a huge jumping off point to go and do what I want to do now. It just gives you so much more experience and knowledge of what you love to do out there. You're going to go through different iterations. You're into mountain biking, but then you got into photography, and then it kind of morphed into this. And then it was, mountain biking with photography, doing through trail rides on my mountain bike. Like, go live it now, guys. Make memories now. Tomorrow's not promised. Like I tell people that all the time. I may walk out in front of a freaking donut truck tomorrow. Like, it'd be a nice way to go. Like, my last words might be, and he's like, are you okay? I'd be like, just give me the cream filled. And that would be it. But I'd die with a donut in my mouth. But I'd be dead. And life is over at that point. No more adventuring. You can never count on tomorrow. Go live your life today. So whatever the heck vehicle you have, figure out, put you together a modular system like I've talked about for camping. Something you can just plug in and out in a freaking Walmart tote, or a tote like an HDX tote from Home Depot. Put the stuff you need in there. It's always ready to go. And all you got to do, if you got kids, is throw crap in the bag for the kids, their clothes, their undies, their toothbrushes, whatever. You throw it in, you do your weekend, you come back, you throw it out, you're back to work the next day. Or if it's just you and a partner, go out there and find you the vehicle that works for you. Get you the one that takes you the places you want to go and does it within your budget. There are options. That's kind of the point of tonight's episode, really, or this last, half of the episode has been, there are options. There are options. There are compromises. There are practical choices, which Subaru's really fallen into that area for me. And it's not just because I bought one. I fell into that area for me, and that's why I bought one. They're kind of the in between, man. If you get you a Wilderness Edition or even just a regular Subaru, it's going to do more, and it's going to do it for a lot cheaper. It's a great option. A Pro 4X, if you can find you an old Xterra, look at that. The gas mileage is going to be up there, but the cost is going to be affordable to you. And great vehicle. Y'all, the whole point is go and live. Whatever you have, get online. Figure out how people are camping. Figure out if hammocks will work for you. Figure out what it is you need to do, and then buy a vehicle, if you're in the market, that will do all of those things efficiently, and you've found your adventure wagon, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, or until you're ready to move into something else that you have decided and figured out through use. That's a whole lot of life, is just living it, because then you realize, you know what, this is great, but it could be greater if I had this. And then you figure out, there is a vehicle that is this, but with that would be even greater. As soon as we get some equity in this bad boy, let's trade it in for that. Whatever. Guys, the point is, put thought into your lives. Put thought into your efforts to get out there in the world and get out and actually go do it. That's all I want to preach to everyone. Live your life now while it's here to live, because we never know what tomorrow brings, and we may not be able to adventure anymore. And then all those memories were left on the table. All of those memories never got to be had. And all you got left is regrets of, damn it, I did not go and live my life. So anyway, that's going to wrap us up for tonight. I probably could have spent and should have spent a lot more time getting into other vehicles and other options. We'll have to title this so that it's not misleading in any way, shape, or form. But we've run a long episode here. It has gotten long. So I need to wrap it up so I can get to editing. I am so thankful you guys are here. I am thankful that you stuck around with me to the end. If you did, I probably lost most of you. But if you stuck around till the end, I am super excited that you did, and I am very, very thankful that you did. Again, remember, share this guy wherever you can think to share it. Go on and like and subscribe and leave a review. Again, such a huge deal to leave a review. If you got a spooky story for spooky season, you got 3 weeks, mywaywardsstory@gmail.com, or if you just want to talk to me or send me a line. I love beyond measure hearing from you guys. So send me an email. Anything else, go to www.waywardstories.com and you can see videos and my TikTok and my Instagram and all the other stuff exist over there. Other than that, guys, that's all I got for the wrap up. And I look forward to seeing you guys again in 2 weeks with a story that I don't yet know what the hell it's going to be, but we will figure it out by then. Anyway, it's time for me to get out of here. You guys be safe on your travels, get out there in the world, and don't forget to be good to each other.